still hear the background music.
Oh, you get. Hi there, this is Jim the Keys bartender. Hey, Joe, you heard the background music?
Yeah. What do you have playing in the background?
Oh, that's classical music in the background. Let me stop that. Alexa, turn down the volume.
Yeah. Stop that, because I'm liable to get
Culture?
I don't know, culture. God forbid.
So, no, I like all different types. I just play it in the background for the hell of it. Hey, Joe, welcome back. This is Jim the Keys bartender. I'm here with Papa Joe. It's a live show.
Hey, man.
Yep. And
good to be back.
I'm going to give out the number. We just figured out, at least tentatively, that we can take phone calls. So the phone number is 407-392-4563. The original post, I put the wrong number on the...
Oh.
Yeah, I put 393, but it says 407-392-4563. What happens, we receive the calls through a Skype number, and I guess 305 is all used up, I guess because of all the girls that are using it for, there's girls that use Skype numbers in order. What are all the call girls are using? They got to use, with social distancing and stuff like that, they had to use.
Well, you got to cut them girls a break.
Guys and girls, right? So what have you been up to, Joe? I've been doing a lot of, especially when I was experimenting with Skype. I wasn't bringing people on because I wasn't sure what would happen. But luckily, I didn't get any phone calls either.
Yeah.
Well,
I've just been, just back to work and running around doing that. Some deadlines with the book came up. Had to push through that, and working on the next book. So it's been a little busy between traveling the United States and working on the book.
Were you in town for mini season?
Luckily, I got back in town late that Friday, so I just missed it.
So for background for anybody who's a new listener, mini season I'm talking about is it's lobster mini season, and it was a couple weeks ago, and there were concerns. Well, we'll find out. It's funny now with how the lag time finding out what an event did to currently what Monroe County is at, like 1,600 cases.
Yeah, it's somewhere around there. Isn't that strange? Because that's gone up from like 300 cases in just 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah. Well, and then there's a lag time with the deaths, and I don't know where they're at now, 20 or something like that. We're a small county. We're not like Miami, and it's not as tight here. But we do have events where people. I just have a feeling they're not recording the deaths if they leave. But we're not. If a listener comes on, they don't have to listen to. They got everyone in the world's going through this, so nothing's unique here.
There is something unique here, because on top of COVID, we have dengue fever.
Oh, dengue fever, yeah, and they got some people dying from that too. Yeah. How many deaths from dengue? 5?
I've not been following. I just know that the amount of infections continue to rise, and the county, of course, it's a mosquito spread virus. You can't catch it by being in proximity to someone unless a mosquito bites them.
Yeah.
Right. So the county has been spraying for mosquitoes like crazy, especially over Key Largo, because it seems to be like a mini outbreak of dengue fever.
Well, it's actually right in our area. Yeah, it's right in where I live, 102, and where you live, right?
Yes. I mean, it's sometimes twice a day they go over, and So it's here, and hopefully it stays somewhat contained.
Yeah, and I don't, it's not a spray as much. It's like really tiny pellets are dropping, isn't it?
Yeah, well, let me tell you something, Jim. I see that thing fly, I usually go inside.
Oh, yeah.
I don't wait around it.
Yeah, to breathe it in. Well, at least
Yeah,
if
no.
a mosquito, you breathe in a mosquito and you have the no. There's some backward logic. Well, we'll just breathe that in, just like the Clorox, drinking Clorox.
Yeah.
Okay, so, yeah, and it's been hot, and it's hot in the rest of the United States, but this is that southern part of the United States hot with the humidity down here. And everyone thinks their humidity is a little more unique. I think it's bearable down here,
Well, thank God for a breeze sometimes,
Yeah. I mean, at night, it's not, I go outside and I walked home from work last night. I live about three blocks away. And it was lovely. The weather was that way, 80, 82 degrees.
Well, it wasn't that pleasant in Alabama last week when I went back over there.
Oh yeah,
it was 97 degrees, no wind, high humidity, and it felt like it may as well have been 120.
Oh.
It was really miserable.
Yeah. Oh, that's there's nothing you do about the weather, but I tell you, it's been really nice down here. We've had a lot of visitors in the past week, which it was interesting. Everyone wanted to shut down for mini season, but we've been busier since mini season.
Interesting.
The restaurant has been busier since. So I'm thinking, and that's not anecdotal. It was there. It was busier. Categorically, every night was busier. Three times the amount of business, takeout and all the in-person dining, which we have in the Keys now, that Miami, and they have an 11 p.m. curfew for the Keys for restaurants. So if you're dining in a restaurant, all patrons have to be out by 11 p.m. They did that as a small concession to the people that wanted to shut down for the mini lobster season. Other than that, it's weird how where all this shit's going on, right? It's an election year. Got the pandemic with the perfunctory recession, major league depression going on. When you're living through history, you don't really take a historical view of it, right?
Yeah, usually not.
No. And the people that lived through the plague, and I guess the regular life was miserable during the Middle Ages. Just regular day-to-day life was miserable. And they didn't even know it. They survived as they survived as they could. But it took upwards of it took 4 years for the Black Plague to burn itself out the first time it hit Europe. 4 years.
Wow, I didn't realize it lasted that long.
Yeah, it kept on coming back. What happened is it kept on coming back, like it is here, right?
Right.
What happened is it kept on coming back, and the bigger plague issue came back in different forms every 20 years. But the Black Plague was the biggest one, the one from the I think it was the 14th century. It was 4 years. They say 200 million people were taken for that. Really, Europe would have hit its peak population back in the, that would have been the 1600s if it wasn't for the plague knocking back the population. And then all the subsequent wars that followed that. But I tried to. It's 10 minutes we're talking about it, so we can catch up. Now we're all caught up. So you've been traveling, And this, how was it getting on planes?
Actually, quite well. I was very, very happy to. It just so happens I flew Delta.
Uh-huh.
They will leave a seat. They've been leaving a seat in between passengers open, so they're not filling up the planes. Really? So depending on how many seats you have in a plane or the configuration, you could have either half a plane or roughly 66% of a plane filled, and that's it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they could put, like, if there's 3 people together, they put 3 people together, and right?
No, you have to ask, and you have to be with family.
Yeah.
Or traveling with friends, but you have to request sitting together. Mm-hmm. Then they will let you. Otherwise, it's every other seat.
Yeah, that makes complete sense to me because obviously if you all, let's say you all drove to the airport together, your friends and your coworkers, and you've been together, worked together, that you're separating on the plane really doesn't really matter. And
right.
It actually frees up more seats, so.
Well, I think it makes, one, it reduces the anxiety on a plane because you have an empty seat next to you, right? Yeah. You feel a little more comfortable. Mm-hmm. They do a really good job sanitizing it. They hand you alcohol wipes when you enter the plane instead of having a drink cart, the little cart that goes down the middle, and they ask you if you want a Coke or whatever. What they do, they just hand you a bag. It has a bottle of water in it, some crackers, and some peanuts, and another alcohol wipe. So, I mean, they're doing as good as they can. I was pretty impressed with the overall flow. Everything went real quick. What a novel idea. They finally learned that when they board the planes, they start at the back and they work their way front. It took a pandemic for them to figure out that it works just easier that way.
It does. Well, they did it because you paid. Yeah, they figured that people in first class paid the money to get them on their seats first. But
they get on. Yeah, they get on first. Well, they still get on first, but let's face it, first class usually doesn't have that many people in it.
Yeah, but that means everyone walks by you. You got everyone walking by you.
Well, that's true. But then the overwhelming majority of a plane is not first class.
Yeah.
And they don't care if you're in comfort class or they don't care. You start at the back of the plane, and it's amazing. There's no line on the gate. When they do that, everyone is at the back and moving. So you're not having to stumble over people or wait for some idiot to cram their bag in a luggage compartment. It just flows better. And then of course when you exit the plane, it's the front gets off first, like always.
Yep.
And it just makes for a much less hectic and strenuous trip. So it's working. And plus the airports seem to be, I don't know, half capacity, more or less.
I have a prediction.
Yes, tell me.
Some planes will put first class in the back of the plane. Prediction. What do you think?
Oh, man. I think it's genius.
Because people are going to say, well, I don't want all these people walking by me. So they just put us on the plane first. We're in the back, and then we're last to leave. And then we don't have to walk past anybody. So
that's right. That's perfect.
They're going to be now. Some airlines will do that because they'll say, "Well, this is the reason why we do it." And some people realize, "Well, that makes a lot of sense." It'll only happen with a big carrier, because a regional carrier or small carriers will have to accommodate everyone. Oh,
yeah. Actually, that would be too funny if that ever happened.
Yeah, that would be. That would. Nick, you know what? They should let people leave by the slide too.
Let them what?
Slide out the emergency entrances. That should be an option.
Yeah.
Right? Make it a slip and slide. Spray them down with sanitizer and slide them right off the plane.
Yeah, what better way to learn how to finally undo those doors?
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
when you sit in an exit row, they say, "Well, read the manual." Yeah, that's going to help when the plane starts to go down.
Yeah.
I'm going to read the manual? No.
Yeah. No,
Let's
but
have a lesson.
and that'll be in first class too, where they allow the slide first, because they want to get off the plane. You know, they want to get on the plane first. They're going to back, and not have anybody go past them, and so they don't have to go past anybody or any infected. They'll just have them slide out the back door, or just, you know, maybe in first class, maybe just drop them off before they even land.
Yeah, that, or they can go back to making planes with the additional entrance ramp in the back, the tail of the plane.
Well,
Remember
I meant
those?
drop them off. I said drop them off before they land, man. You know what I mean?
Parachute them back home.
Yeah. I don't know. Someone's calling. I think he. Why do people call when they're calling the wrong number? That's not the number. Yeah. Someone's calling my regular number. I think it's. Oh. I didn't catch that. Say answer or. It's. I guess maybe they can't call in. Let me see. So I called the number 407-392-4563. If you're trying to call into the show, that's the number you want to call. 407-392-4563. Yeah. So that's interesting. That's nice that you know, the planes aren't that crowded. At least there's some comfort. And I always thought that a theory out there is that people are, because of people of all ancestries that have been through plagues, they may. You ever hear of how people call famine bodies, like people that store carbohydrates and stuff like that, and come from a famine culture, like some years, and they just are more efficient at storing fat. And it's not an evolutionary; it's a natural. Some people they confuse evolution with selection and breeding. There are three separate things, right? Joe? Okay, here.
Yeah.
Okay. Evolution is nature, you know, where an aquatic creature starts adapting to spending more time on land and becoming, you know, over millions and millions of years. Evolution is a slow process. Natural selection is also a slow process, not necessarily that, but just as a tiger, the albino tigers don't survive maybe because they can't hunt as efficiently, right? And the natural colorings of a tiger arise from that. That's natural selection. And breeding is just like when you breed, how they bred dogs, right?
Okay.
That's not natural. Breeding is not natural selection, because that's a forced.
No, it's quite the opposite.
The forced selection.
It's a forced selection.
So the famine body and certain things, people adapting, like more people, let's say more babies or people are able to survive if they're able to store more fat, or have a better chance of surviving a famine, right? If you can pour just like that, and they pass on that trait to subsequent generations, right?
Okay.
Just like melanin and all those things, you're passing on traits to the next generation that make it more viable. Now, it may not be happening as much now because we have all these things that artificially sustain people that would not have survived. And I'm not for eugenics or anything like that. I'm just saying how people survived before. So you think about the people that survived the plague. A lot of people died right away, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But some died. and then some survived.
I would have. Well, do you think some developed some form of group immunity?
No,
Those that survived
I don't know enough about that. There's all sorts of theories. It's people having stronger natural immune systems, more T cells. You know what I mean? Because a coronavirus is not what makes it novel is that it hasn't been transferred to a population yet, so you shouldn't have an existing immunity. So a plague that pops up, the next plague that pops up may not have anything to do with the type of virus that was subsequent or was before it, right? So all I'm suggesting is maybe the people survived, or they always talk about how humans were naturally wired for. Some people are naturally wired for anxiety, or that flight or fight instinct. Where something happens and it triggers an autonomic response in your system, anxiety, boost of blood pressure, so you're getting ready. Let's say your heart rate quickens in order to increase that. So maybe all these plagues that came around and our ancestors surviving them left an imprint on us, not necessarily on how to fight future plagues, but how we react to them.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that anxiety, that thing that goes on, and we're
right.
Like it would
that
disappear.
Would be considered...
I mean, imagine in 16. Think about it, in the 1500s, 1400s, you have a plague and it just kind of winds down, right? And then it mutates.
Right.
And then something happens, and it comes back, and they got to wait. They must have not known what the fuck was going on back then.
So you're saying our reaction to, in this case, an unknown disease, becomes almost a cultural evolutionary trait as opposed to a physical or genetic evolutionary trait.
It could be both. But, like, culturally, maybe they're accepting a death, meaning that's what happens, because it happens so often. So there's some people...
Oh, well, they didn't accept the plague as something that just happened. They blamed everything under the sun, including menstruating women. However, I get your point.
Meaning, but they got it so often. Not everyone died from it. Not everyone did anything about it. So whole towns were wiped out.
Oh, yeah.
And some were left relatively untouched. So, but primarily it touched everyone. I'm just saying the reaction to it, and the modern day, like everyone had, yeah, you're right, menstruating women, blaming the Jewish people for it, blaming gypsies, blaming anybody, blaming the church, blaming this. I mean, there were some small revolutions that occurred against the establishment during that time, because it upset society. You could have, a realm. They had during the Middle Ages. There wasn't a lot of large government. There weren't governmental systems. There were small feudal systems, and when that got ravaged, if the Lord died and his household and all that stuff, the people just, whoever was left, they said, well, you're not in charge anymore. Maybe we could do a little better. It doesn't matter. It just upset everything. But everyone had their own theory. There was no unified one. Nowadays, let's say, go back to 1918, when they had the Spanish influenza, they just said, hey, listen, go and do this and put on a mask. And there were anti-mask people in 1918. There are people. There's always people that say this won't do it, this will do it, or But I think it's a smaller percentage.
Well, it seems that the constant the knee-jerk reaction seems to be constant. Although the reaction might change a little bit, the fact that it occurs seems to be a constant in that cultural evolutionary reaction to a pandemic or the unexplained. And in this case, what do we have going on today? We have a denial of science, and we have upheaval, and some of it may not seem like COVID related, but the overall condition of our country and COVID has, I believe, exacerbated certain conditions that have gone on that people have no longer the ability to sit idle and allow to continue. I think COVID has helped inflame some of these passions, and regardless of how you feel about them, here they are, and it's part of what really makes the COVID story and this time in history problematic, troubling. We're in a state of unrest, of imbalance, because all these issues, social issues, have just busted loose, and they've never been historically easy to solve. And now there seems to be this, and maybe rightfully so, this demand that they get solved right now. And it all ties back into what COVID has done. So what I would ask is, going back to the plague, there was a whole Reformation movement that went on in the church. And there was upheaval to the systems in Europe, such that had the plague not occurred, some of those, those things would never have happened. History would not have taken that other road.
Yeah. It's interesting you said that. 600 years ago, someone started positing a theory and saying, listen, it seems to be that there wasn't the research or science or even language to describe it, but there were probably people that had very strong observational skills that realized that, if you have to be in contact with someone or they're a byproduct of that person in order to get infected, if you stayed separate, let's say people that are separate from them, they would notice that there was commonality in how things occurred, that how there was transmission. And they may be able trying to tell other people that, but you're telling people that a large percentage of the population was illiterate, and the ones that could read they read only certain text. So you could have, like nowadays, everyone in the United States can spout a bullshit theory, right?
Right.
And then there's people that say, well, this wise man here thinks it's this, and this person, wise man, who doesn't seem to be, he sounds wise, but he's been wrong a lot, So they probably, he sounds wise. He says to throw all the Jewish people into wells. But the wise man over there says, well, if you throw people into wells and they die, they're going to poison your well, and not only going to kill people from more plague, you're going to die from, poisoned water. So, I'm sure all sorts of things like that happen. But, that was, I do take your point there. You know what? We did end. It's 30 minutes into the show, and we pretty much. It's always. It did the same thing when I was just by myself, Joe. So I can't. I learned that you can't not talk about it. It's not just the gorilla in the room, the 600-pound gorilla in the room. It's the 600 gorilla surrounding you, like a crowd of them, and that's it. It's a people.
No. Listen, but it's. Yeah, it's the pandemic, and it seems it's on all the television stations. It's news 24/7, right? You get tired of listening to it.
Yeah,
that's just the pandemic. But when you start thinking about how society and branches of society, what's going on, and just to think for a moment that is the pandemic fueling these other issues in our society? whether they're social or political. And it's an interesting subject matter. I don't have any answers for it. I have my ideas. I think it is, but I tend to think that in a pandemic or in a national crisis or a world crisis, it naturally is going to shift the normal way we conduct our business. You have to realign, you have to rethink systems, you have to evaluate how you do business, everything, including your own values. You may have to reevaluate your value system. So, yes, I see the pandemic as being that important. That's the kind of news. Of course, you never hear that on television. They want to tell you about how many have died and how many are sick and the fact that testing sucks. But really, when you look at all of society in the United States, things are happening. They're not all nice. And, the question I play with is, how does this pandemic fuel that? And I think it does. That's all. That's why the pandemic is an interesting topic to me. And yes, I too get bored with the general mundane nonsense about, should I wear a mask? Should I not wear a mask? I mean, for Christ's sake.
Yeah. No, I understand that. Hey, listen, take your mind off this a little, maybe. Are you ready for it?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. I was trying to talk. I was attempting to start a conversation with a coworker, and his observation or his view on the topic I was talking about was very interesting. So I started mentioning movies I got. It's weird how you go through certain movies, and I've looked at movies that I would never have really thought about watching before, but I enjoy the cinema. But
yes.
I said to him, I was mentioning movies, and he said to me straight face, he said he doesn't like movies because he doesn't like actors playing the roles of someone who lived. Okay, so he says he likes the idea. No, it's and he likes when he sees a film, he likes to see the person playing. I said, so you like the news or documentaries? And he says, yes, I only like documentaries when it's played by. Well, I said that's the nature of documentaries, though. It's going to be the people that. If it's a documentary of someone, they're going to have that person. It should be that person. A documentary of let's say Anthony Fauci won't have someone else playing. They won't bring an actor to play Anthony Fauci, unless it's
not on a documentary.
Yeah, unless it's
but what if they?
Unless it's a documentary
if they do
like the Civil War? Now they didn't have any recordings of that, so I go. So wait, so. You only, since the advent of film, you only like documentaries or the small smattering of films where the actor actually played them were the people that the thing happened to. Can you think of there's actually some movies like that. There are, Joe. There was that
the actor playing it.
Yeah, that Clint Eastwood did that movie about the three guys on the train in Paris. I forgot the name of it. Something like something 10 to
Well,
Paris.
There's another one that. Yeah, that's a 3:12 to Paris or something like that.
Yeah. Where they he had.
That was actually a very good movie.
Yeah, and then there were actors that played themselves, but the movie wasn't real. But it's the actor playing themselves.
There is an actor coming out of World War II that actually he played in a drama.
Audie Murphy, yeah.
Yes, Audie Murphy played himself. in his own story, which was just a little bit
but
overdone,
everyone else,
but not much because
everyone
he was
else
kind of a
though
crazy
was
dude.
everyone else was
An actor.
everyone else was an actor. So
Yeah.
so now,
Hey, bring in those dead Germans. Where did those dead German bodies go? We got to bring them back. Yeah, I don't understand. It just.
Yeah, there was the movie Being John Malkovich, which John Malkovich was a star in. There was this movie called This Is the End. It was a comedy. Seth Rogen, James Franco.
Oh, that's right.
Craig
God,
Robinson,
that was funny.
Danny,
Yes.
Danny McBride. Yeah, they played themselves. This movie Coffee and Say, "Oh, I'm Still Here." That was Joaquin Phoenix, which he portrayed as a documentary, but it was actually a movie. He played himself, but he was making it up. It was really interesting. It was a documentary of Joaquin Phoenix being crazy, and he was putting on the air of being crazy. It was drugs and prostitutes and all this stuff. It was great. It was performance art. But then I looked at the guy and I said, wow, so you don't like anything historical. So I go, that's why the title of the show is called Sorry, Jesus. So there's no Jesus movies you watch.
No
Jesus.
Sounds like there's not a whole lot of any movies.
No Abraham Lincoln. No Madame Curie. No, I mean could be. I think she may have lived into she lived into the age of film. Joan of Arc. Queen Elizabeth I. So forget about that. Almost all the Civil War. Gosh, any whaling movie.
Your coworker's missing out.
Yeah, I'm like, there's tons of people. Oh, no Santa. No Santa Claus. There's no Santa Claus or Easter Bunny because you can't watch anything fictional. There was a movie called The Invention of Lying. I mentioned it to you before. Yeah, and it was interesting because what he was talking about was pretty much based on that movie.
Really?
I didn't, and I'm sure he didn't see the movie because nobody was real in that movie. And it's a world where no one lies, right? No one has told a lie.
Except this guy learns that he can lie, and it gets him stuff.
Yeah. Well, he benefits from it, and it's not mean-spirited lies either. He just you think of lying, you think of negative. Stating an untruth could be done for humorous reasons, right? He's hanging out with friends in a bar, and he just says, "I just thought of something that wasn't." And like what? He goes, "Well, my father invented my father invented the bicycle. I'm an astronaut. I'm actually a black man." And they were just accepting everything he said. And one of the guys says, the bartender says, "Can you get me a deal on a 10-speed bicycle?" Because it's just like no one. And they go, "You're black," and they go, "Oh, really?" And I say, "Well, it's really hard to tell." It was a white guy saying it. So, he could just tell anybody. He walks outside the bar, and he sees a beautiful woman walks the street, and he says to her, "Listen, the world is going to end in a half hour if we don't have sex." And they go and they run to a motel, and she's ready to have sex with him and stuff like that. Because no one ever lies, and the form of entertainment for video entertainment, it's all documentary, and it's all being read by someone in a chair. That's it. There's no recreation.
Drama, can you?
No. There's no actor saying the words. They're just reading a book. Reading the history. So that's their entertainment, and this guy works for a network, and it's just documentary. So almost if adhering to it, I could have pointed out to him when you're watching a documentary, right? Unless it's a documentary about someone who doesn't know it's a documentary, you might get something real out of it. You know what I'm saying?
I think the greater issue is an individual's inability to suspend disbelief, and that's problematic. That's stunted.
Uh-huh.
I think if you can't suspend your belief, did I say disbelief? If you can't suspend your belief,
yeah,
and allow yourself to travel somewhere in your imagination, if you don't have that component, if you don't have the ability to have that layered imagination,
uh-huh,
to enjoy a storytelling is how humans have existed,
yeah,
and will continue to exist. If you don't have that component, I'm a little confused. What would that put you as? Two-dimensional
yeah.
or one-dimensional?
Oh,
It's a stunted growth. It's a stunted emotional growth, a stunted psychological. It just seems an unfinished work. Someone who doesn't seem to have the capacity to tolerate storytelling, drama. See what I'm saying? It's an interesting condition. I've never run into anyone like that, but I would think. Now, let me ask you this about the story about the movie about No One Lies.
mm-hmm.
Would that condition, would that fantasy world still be considered a dystopia?
It wasn't a dystopia because there was no religion. It was actually almost like a utopia because no one.
More of a utopia.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
If you think about it, no one lied and things like that. I guess I don't know. Well, how would World War II happen if no one lied? You know?
How would comedy happen if no one lied?
I mean, it's an interesting thing, but I think more harm has been done from the lies than the truth.
Oh, well, listen, lies offer. Look, didn't the movie just kind of open up the fact that lies can go from harmless to really harmful real quick?
Yeah. Well, how it began is his mother, the main character's mother was dying, right? She was in the midst of her last moments, right? And she says to her son, she goes, I can't believe that this is it and it's going to be nothing. I'm going to die and that's it. I'm done. There's nothing else. And he looked at her and he said, no, that's not true. When you die, you go someplace and they give you a mansion. They give you a mansion and you're there with everyone you loved and all this stuff. And he's telling his mom that, and she's smiling because she's never heard that before. And he says, and you're going to be happy and this and that. And it mollifies her at the end, and she dies with a smile on her face. And he's crying as he's telling his mom this, and he turns around, and there's the doctor and two nurses standing there, right? And the guy goes,
right.
The doctor goes, I never heard this before. This is amazing, and all that stuff, right? Because they never heard anybody say, if someone said something, it had to be true. So he becomes famous because of that. And he has to talk about the man in the sky. The man in the sky and how he wants you to do this and that, and he invents religion. So there's no religion. Right?
Until he introduces that lie.
Yeah. Now, that is his. In his world, no one come up and said they had a conversation with a higher power. There was no. I mean, I don't. Yeah.
Well, he seems to be the messenger of the higher power, doesn't he? He's the messenger. He's the Jesus figure.
Makes him. Yeah, he's the Muhammad more. I guess you would call it, because he's more of a prophet. But he doesn't believe it, and he's saying it just because
Well, there's no.
he gave people a little hope, and they were happy, so he went with it and kept on going.
Right. I get it.
I mean, it was. I liked it. It was a little. Actually, there's going to be tons of people get angry. Obviously, anybody who's religious will not like the movie, right?
Draw the obvious conclusion that it's a statement about religion in a joking way. Yeah,
and relationship. It's a statement about relationships, because he falls in love with Jennifer Garner. It's Ricky Gervais. Ricky Gervais is he's famous for his views. I think, I don't know if he's agnostic or atheist. I think I'm pretty sure he's
no. He's an atheist.
Okay, he's an atheist.
Yes, he's an atheist.
But he falls in love with Jennifer Garner, right? And Jennifer Garner says, and she looks at him, goes, and says the truth. Says, frankly, you're unattractive, you're a little fat, and I don't think your job is that great. So, and she's saying that to him, trying to be nice. And I'm not really attracted to you, and I don't think you'll be a suitable genetic choice for me to pass on. They're not traits I want to pass on to my children, right? And that's how she'd like this guy. But she goes, you do make me laugh, and I do enjoy your company. She knows it. She does say that. In the end, and in the end, she does fall in love with him. And I don't think
hope springs eternal.
And I don't think he doesn't. She doesn't fall in love with him because he lies to her either, even though he did lie to her a little. But in the end, he tells her, he goes, "No, I'm not. I'm no different than I was before," and stuff like that. I mean, in the end, he didn't. None of this was enunciated, but she made a decision. But he got wealthy because he lied. He made up a story about. As a matter of fact, his documentary. He worked for the company that wrote the documentaries for TV. And for years he wanted to write one about the Black Plague, but no one wanted to listen to it, right? So he creates this story behind it with Amazon women and the Prince of Mars marrying at the end of the Dark Ages and all this stuff. Yeah, he talks about the plague, but it ends with the Martians having a Martian Amazonian wedding and all that stuff, and everyone's like amazed by it. Yeah. Yeah, it's good. So imagine that, like if someone sees imagine some, I hate to say the word primitive, but a secluded tribe, right? That never was exposed to technology. If there's any such thing around today, right? And you just took that person and put them in a room with a big TV. They never saw a TV. And you just started playing Star Wars. Right?
I can only imagine the reaction.
Yeah, like what is going on here? I mean, if you don't have any context, maybe they don't see anything. Because supposedly the oral tradition of how the explorers, the European explorers landed in the New World, was the oral tradition is that the natives didn't recognize the ships until they encountered the men coming aboard on their boats, because they didn't know what those ships were. They thought there were clouds. They didn't see anything because they didn't know those ships existed.
Yeah, they have zero frame of reference.
Yeah, just like
but
imagine it's almost like it works for anything really. A guy who, you always see it in movies. A guy could be sitting having dinner by himself in a restaurant, and a beautiful woman walks up to him, or a beautiful guy walks up to him, and whatever very they're and the person's coming on to them and they don't even notice it because they have no frame of reference. It's never happened to them before. So they said no way
Right.
that could happen, even though they know it happens sometimes. I remember as a kid, supposedly, I remember people telling me that person was hitting on you or something like that, right? And I never had a frame of reference when I was younger.
Yeah, back when people would say, "Well, you were just naive."
Yeah.
All that means is you had no knowledge, no frame of reference.
Yeah, how could such a thing? I mean, I didn't know. Now I know, but obviously now, well, I mean, you kind of know when they're doing it, and you can't really do anything about it, if you're responsible to your partner. So, so that guy with the documentaries, I thought it was interesting. And he works a lot, so he may have all the free time he has in order to watch it. I mean, he may be, and I thought that made him very interesting when he said it. Some people do things, and they think that's odd, that's crazy, that's weird. I thought it was rather interesting that the guy. I would rather see the person it's about playing themselves.
No, it's interesting. It's just
Be kind of
peculiar. I
egotistical,
know.
though. You know what I thought about? You ever seen that documentary about? Was it Robert Evans who? Let me. The kid. It's a documentary called "The Kid Stays in the Picture." You ever hear of it?
Oh, I've never seen that one.
It was about
no.
It was the golden age of Hollywood. This guy started out as an actor, and then he became a big-time producer. Oh my God, it's hilarious. Let me see. What is it? Robert Evans. Yes. Robert Evans. There's a documentary. Oh my God. Okay, so he was an American film producer. He did Rosemary's Baby, Love Story, The Godfather, Chinatown. Right?
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, and he went to Hollywood. I think he played. Remember the movie The Sun Also Rises with
Yes.
Eva? Was it Eva Gardner? Ava Gardner. Ava Gardner. Who was the guy? Powell? Was William Powell? It could have been William Powell.
Was it William Powell?
No, I forget the guy's name, but I know Errol Flynn had a part in it. Remember where Ava Gardner falls in love? She goes to Spain and falls in love with a matador.
Yes.
Skinny, tanned matador. The matador was Robert Evans before he was a producer.
No, get out of here.
Yes, and he was, he was in his 20s then, right? So, Tyrone Powers.
Tyrone Power. There you go.
Okay, so Robert Evans was the matador. Okay, so young kids and all. But if you ever get to see, what's the documentary? Oh God, it's going to be hilarious. It's hilarious. The Kid Stays in the Picture. It was a book, right? And this guy did, he was all about, in his latter years, he was doing cocaine, prostitutes, and all this stuff. But he had this really raspy voice from smoking unfiltered cigarettes for like 50 years, right? And he narrated the documentary, The Kid Stays in the Picture. He narrated the documentary about himself. And and most of it, I guess the guy had enough self-awareness. He had enough self-awareness that he didn't. But it made him look grandiose, the whole documentary. But I think people know there was another underlying layer of he's desperately needed attention because he was way past his prime. He was one of those guys that were the George Hamilton ascot.
Oh yeah.
The long cigarette holder and all that stuff, and it clenched in his teeth, and always had that kind of tan, George Hamilton tan, and all that stuff, and hair always shellacked backwards, and he sounded like the devil. He sounded like Patton Oswalt always said that. said he sounded like the devil. If the devil made a documentary about himself, that would be the kid stays in the picture. But he wasn't super evil. It's not like he was super evil or anything like that. It was kind of he's a little bit of a narcissist and stuff like that. But it's him narrating. He wrote the book. The kid stays in the picture, and then the documentary, and then they said, well, Robert Evans is still around. Why don't you just have him do the narration for his own documentary, based on his book? You know, it's crazy. Yeah. And if you get the chance to see it in that perspective, when you look at it, it's really entertaining. And they did if any listeners get it, on the Independent Film Channel, there's a series called Documentary Now, and they spoof all the famous documentary, all the famous ones. Like Zane, who was it? Zane, what's his name? Not Zane Grey, but Zane, the guy that did Swimming to Cambodia.
I don't know him.
Okay, well, he sits at a table. He has a projection. He has a screen behind him, and he gives a long-running 2-hour monologue, right, about things he observes, right?
Okay.
And in Documentary Now, this guy does it, but it's all crazy stuff. Oh, how about Grey Gardens? You ever hear of Grey Gardens?
No.
Now, this was a documentary made in the late 70s, if I'm not correct, or maybe early 80s. And it's these two, an aging socialite and her mother, who live in this decrepit summer home in someplace like, where do the Kennedys have their place? Martha's Vineyard. Okay?
Okay.
They have this old estate that's falling apart, holes in the floor and stuff like that. And they were the shit back in the 1940s, right? In the late 40s and stuff. This woman and her mother, and for some reason their financial advisors squandered their fortune. They were totally wiped out. And they were living like destitute in their decaying mansion. But they're still thinking about, they're still lost in their own grandiosity, how the aging socialite was a debutante who women admired her and wanted her, and her mother was
this is a serious documentary. This is real.
This is a serious, but then they did a spoof on it on Documentary Now. You should. It's
that
hilarious.
That would be like a.
You never. There was one. The serious documentaries are funny in context. There was one made in the late 50s, early 60s called Bible Salesman. It was about traveling Bible salesmen. A real documentary. They're Bible salesmen. They go door to door selling gold embossed Bibles, and you buy them for like $50 or something like that. And you're worth like $6, and they make like $20 a Bible. And it's a lot of money back when they were selling it. You know, they could actually, sell 2-3 Bibles a day and make a pretty good living. But these guys are selling Bibles and all this stuff door to door, and then they go back to their motels and they're drinking and smoking and playing cards and shit like that. One of the guys is in a sales drought, and they got this manager who's riding their ass and shit like that. Real documentary. So the spoof one they make is called The Globesman. The Globesman. And they go door to door selling globes. And there's this, they're the protagonist. The antagonist is this German salesman that sells an atlas. An atlas? And he's always doing things like taking shits on their pillows and all that stuff like that. Oh, it's a hilarious show. And so Documentary Now. Oh, they do one where it's like that HBO show, that real hip. Oh, what's that show? That news show on HBO that young people it's on Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights. It's kind of like
It's not Vice, is it?
Yeah, Vice. Vice.
Vice.
They,
There you
they
go.
do a Vice bit on documentary now where Jack Black is the guy with the beard, the guy that founded Vice, and he introduces. He has his cocktail in his hand, and he's talking, and he says, "We're looking for this Mexican drug lord," and they send 3 pairs of journalists to see him, and they're these careless millennials. They're sending there, and they're getting killed every time they go there. They're saying, "Oh, we're getting invited into it. These police officers are going to take us to them," and all of a sudden they get in the car, and all of a sudden you see gunshots, boom, 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 and they're gone. And so yeah, they keep on getting killed, and they keep on sending new guys. It's a brilliant show, and it's introduced by Helen Mirren, right?
Oh, yeah, awesome.
I think there's only been 3 seasons of it, but Helen Mirren walks out, and she introduces each documentary, and she goes, "Welcome to the 53rd season." Like it's been around forever. The 53rd season of documentary now, and she's real serious, and she'll say she never breaks character and stuff like that, and introduces the next one, and it's pure comedy gold. And how they came up, I was parodying documentaries. It was great. So, my friends did it for. They did parody documentaries for their college classes. They were. It was funny as hell. They did one for Bigfoot. The VCR hunters. I didn't tell you that it was in. It was a movie / documentary. It was a movie, actually. That wasn't a documentary. Where I'm sitting with my girlfriend watching a movie on a VCR. And these 2 guys that used to work at the Sony disc factory, the video disc, they went rogue once the factory closed down. And they were just seizing people's video machines and killing them. Right? So they pull me. Now, the filming actually happened. They pull me out of the house. They have guns, real guns, right? But supposedly, now, if this is from my understanding when I was doing the film, they were unloaded, the guns. And I checked that, right? Well, we was up in the Poconos in Pennsylvania, and it was it was right after New Year's, too. And they put me up against the wall. And they were about to start filming the scene where I'm getting executed, right? And this guy Billy goes, "Listen, I got a live round in this gun." And I said, "You're just doing this." And I'm going like that. "You're just doing this to scare me." He goes, No. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fire it into the wall, right? And the other guy's holding an AR-15, right?
Oh, God.
And he's saying to him, he goes, "Billy, you can't fire the gun into the wall. Don't do it." And my buddy's filming it, right? But without the sound. My buddy's filming it, and they're telling Billy not to fire the gun into the wall. "Billy, don't fire the gun into the wall." And I'm putting my hands up, and I go, "Don't fire the gun into the wall." I'm ready. I'm going to get out of this. This is crazy. So finally, they got Billy to fire the gun into the ground, while my other buddy, Kevin, was pointing the AR-15, and I dropped to the ground when that happened because I said, "Oh, shit, forget it." I was done. And that buddy, my friend, he lives in Sweden, Steve, he said when he showed the film in his class, they said it was very disturbing.
I bet.
I said because there wasn't much acting going on in that scene, So that was pretty much it. Well, listen, we went over an hour, Joe, and we had a grand total of 0 calls. But I don't even know if, well,
I don't know.
well, I know they
think
can
the call thing is working?
I called in, and it wouldn't just work because it's on my phone. It's not on my. I don't have
true.
Skype.
That's true.
But we'll just.
We'll just have to get more people to call.
Yeah, I don't want to fake it. I don't want to fake a phone call coming in, but that'll be pretty much it. Well, I'm going to thank you, Joe, and we'll do this again.
Excellent.
Yeah. maybe are you in town Thursday?
Yeah, this week I'm in town. So yeah, just let me know.
Well, maybe we'll do it again on Thursday. But listen, and I'll send you. Well, I'll scrounge for some topics because I'll get topics that people want to hear about from the listeners. But I don't get a lot of feedback yet. I get all these followers and I don't get a lot of feedback. I don't know why that is. They just want to hear. I don't think they want to be responsible. You know,
For documentaries.
Yeah, not for the documentaries. Yeah, I'll make my own documentary. A man struggles to make a podcast interesting and it doesn't. With him, the biggest barrier is his own talent, or lack thereof.
Yes, or lack thereof.
Lack thereof. Okay. Well, thank you, Joe. I'll talk to you later. It was excellent.
All right, man.
I'm going to sign off. Stay on while we do the music, and so you can talk over if you want. I'm going to be playing it in 3, 2. Oh, before I get off. Remember, folks, the next time we do a live show, write down this number, 407-392-4563. That is 407-392-4563. So next time we do a live show, I'll just say that the phones are open. Just call in. The lines are open. The phones are open. I don't know how that would work. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Here we go, Joe. Can you hear that music playing in the background, Joe?
No, that music I can't hear.
Yeah, it's playing
classical
loud and clear.
music.
I don't. How about if I do this? I'm gonna hit
No.
this. Oh, that's loud. Oh, Christ. I just blasted it. How about if I do this? You hear it?
No, not at all.
How about if I do this? You hear it? No?
Still nothing. I think you ought to just go back and turn on Beethoven
No, the music's
again.
playing. It's playing. I'm just saying you don't hear it.
What?
I wish you'd hear the music that's coming through because this. Yeah, and we are talking over it. Thank you, everyone. Share with a friend. Talk to you later, Joe.
All right, take care.